Buddy, good morning. It is 10 o'clock on a Thursday morning. I'm WESH 2 First Warning Meteorologist Eric Burris, and this is a bit of a different coffee talk today. I know I'm a little bit late. Usually we do it at 8 o'clock in the morning, but the reason that I'm late today is because I was hosting a breakfast over at the Orlando Science Center. But it actually works out because just seconds ago, Phil Klotzbach from Colorado State University put out his seasonal hurricane forecast. And I'm lucky enough, I had the chance to talk to Phil Klotzbach. So, with that said, I'm excited to get right to it and just kind of share. First off, before we get to the interview, let's just talk about the numbers. Colorado State University's forecast calls for 17 named storms, 9 hurricanes, and 4 major hurricanes. The average is 14, 7, and 3. So there's the Colorado State University forecast. But of course, to talk more about it, let's discuss things. All right, Dr. Phil Klotzbach, first off, thank you so much for joining us. So, you have once again authored your hurricane season forecast, and let's just chat a little bit about what you're expecting for the 2025 hurricane season.
Yeah, so we did put out our first forecast today. We are calling for an above normal Atlantic hurricane season. A total of 17 named storms. Those are tropical storms and hurricanes. Of those 17, nine becoming hurricanes, and of those nine, four becoming major category 3, 4, or 5 hurricanes. For comparison, an average season has about 14 storms, 7 hurricanes, and 3 major hurricanes. So more than what you would get in an average season, but not as many as we had last year when we had 11 hurricanes and 5 major hurricanes.
All right, so what were the big contributing factors to your forecast for this year? What led you down your path?
Yeah, so one of the big factors is we don't think we're going to have El Nino this summer and fall. El Nino is warmer than normal water in the central and eastern tropical Pacific Ocean. When El Nino occurs, what it does is it tends to drive very strong winds out of the west high up in the atmosphere, and that tends to shear or tear apart hurricanes as they're trying to develop and intensify. We don't think El Nino is going to be present this summer and fall. Currently, for August through October, the peak of the Atlantic hurricane season, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, only has a 13% chance of El Nino. Also, while the waters in the tropical Atlantic and Caribbean are not as warm as they were last year at this time,
Hmm.
they're still generally running above normal. In addition, the subtropical Eastern Atlantic, so water temperatures, say, off the coast of Portugal, are also running quite warm. And why that matters is because when the waters there are warm, it tends to lower the atmospheric pressures and generate weaker winds blowing across the tropical Atlantic, which then leads to the waters warming up faster than normal since you have less evaporation off of the ocean surface.
Sure. Now, we know, of course, that it takes one hurricane to make a terrible hurricane season for any neighborhood. Last year was a very rough season for so many. For someone who studies this the way that you do, where are you looking at for concern areas, whether it's geographic or whether it's just kind of complacency points?
Yeah. I mean, so obviously last year was a very, very busy year, especially along the west coast of Florida, unfortunately. And obviously the west coast of Florida has been very busy the last few years. Um, there's really nothing we can say this far in advance about, a particular area is going to be more likely to be hit. In general, though, we do find that in years where we don't have El Nino, you tend to get a little more storm activity in the Western Atlantic. And if storms form in the Western Atlantic and the Caribbean, those unfortunately are more likely to cause potentially significant impacts, not just for the United States, but also Central America and the Caribbean. And we can look at this from even the last 2 years. So 2023 was a strong El Nino. We was also still a very busy season because the Atlantic was so blasted hot, but there wasn't that much activity in the western part of the basin. Whereas last year we were kind of cool, neutral, borderline weak La Nina. We had a lot of activity in the western half of the basin, and obviously very impactful for the United States, is given a lot more storm formations in the western half of the basin.
Right, right. So looking ahead to this year, obviously it takes one system to be a bad system. So we have to keep that in mind. But in terms of how long you have done these seasonal forecasts, and prior to you, Dr. Bill Gray, what do you find the biggest benefit to the average hurricane prone resident?
Yeah, so this actually is our 42nd year of doing seasonal hurricane forecasts. We are started all the way back in 1984, as you mentioned, my mentor, Dr. Bill Gray. I joined the project, started working on seasonal hurricane forecast back in 2000. But yes, we always stress with these seasonal hurricane forecasts, they're an informational tool. not a preparedness tool, as you already mentioned. It just takes that one hurricane to make it an active season for you. We also do note that if you're forecasting a busy season, in general, our forecasts do show reasonably good levels of skill. And so when you forecast busy seasons, in general, those seasons are going to have the potential for more landfalling hurricanes. Maybe not one year versus another, but if you start looking at say 5 to 10 years
Right.
of busy hurricane seasons versus 5 to 10 years of quieter hurricane seasons, the number of landfalls is going to be there is going to be a significant difference. But certainly for any given year, obviously there's uncertainty with the forecast, but also even if the forecast is perfect, say we get exactly 9 hurricanes, we can't tell you exactly how many of those 9 are going to hit the United States.
Yeah, 100%. That makes sense. And lastly, for as long as you've studied these, what is the one thing that you would say on a beautiful day in April when we're not tracking a storm in the tropics? What's the one thing that you wish you could say to everybody that is threatened, 6 months out of the year?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is, thankfully, most hurricane seasons there aren't going to be significant impacts where you live. And obviously, living in the coast is great most of the time. But certainly now is really the time to be prepared, have a plan in place, and know what you're going to do if storms do threaten. And then really the key is if a storm is threatening, to follow the advice of your local emergency managers because they're the ones that can tell you best what you need to do, whether you should be sheltering in place
Right.
or if you need to evacuate.
All right. And you do issue forecast updates. So this is the first chapter, so to speak. Just let us know when the next updates will be coming and what you do on those.
That's correct. So we do update the forecast. So this is our first forecast in early April, and kind of like for a day-to-day weather prediction, a 7-day forecast is going to have lower levels of skill than say a forecast for tomorrow. We find the same with our seasonal forecast. So our April forecast has, I would characterize it as modest to moderate skill. When the time you get to June and then especially to August, the forecast skill or the accuracy of the forecast does improve because we're closer to the events that we're trying to predict. So we'll be updating our seasonal hurricane forecast on June 11th, then the 9th of July, and the last update on the 6th of August. And while August 6th is 2 months into the hurricane season, on average, about 90 to even 95% of your major hurricane activity occurs after that point in a typical season.
Right. Very good. Are you going to the National Hurricane Conference in New Orleans?
Yes, sir, I will be there. Are you going to be coming?
I am. So I owe you coffee or
Awesome.
dinner or lunch.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, definitely. I should be there all week, so definitely swing by the media office or whatever, and yeah, or drop me an email. We can definitely meet up and hang out a little bit.
Very good. All right, everybody. Dr. Phil Klotzbach, Colorado State University. Sir, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much. Take care, Eric.
All right. There you go. All right. So Dr. Klotzbach's forecast from the source. And that's I always love. He is so wonderful in that he gives us the opportunity to chat. That was done a couple of days ago because today he is busy, busy, busy. So certainly, you can understand why. So let's just compare. So there's his forecast in the middle and our WESH 2 hurricane season forecast on the right. So remember, an average season calls for 14 named storms. He's going with 17 named storms. WESH 2 calls for 16 to 20 named storms. So I think it's a fantastic job there on both of kind of just the ideas, right? I think it's right in line with what we're calling for. 7 hurricanes is the average. Dr. Klotzbach and team calling for 9. WESH 2 calling for 8 to 10. So again, I think we're very much in tune there. And for major hurricanes, average season calls for 3. Phil Klotzbach 4, WESH 2 calling for 4 to 6 hurricanes. So all seemingly fairly close in line there. So when his numbers came down, my first thought was, oh, good. Okay, so I'm not completely out in the weeds. Susan on X says, good interview. Not only outstanding at doing your own forecast, but able to get great info. Well, thank you very much, Susan. Appreciate it. So there you go. Betty says, I love single digit forecasts. Well, there you go. You got Dr. Phil's forecast there. So that's the big update for today. That's the big announcement. He posted it on his Twitter page right as we were coming on the air. Dr. Klotzbach calling for an above average hurricane season. However, a bit lower in terms of numbers than last year. And of course, we will be talking about that on WESH 2 News through the day today. I will have a piece of that interview there on Wesh 2 News starting at noon. We'll also be doing the story and comparing it to um, our seasonal forecast. Okay, so that's kind of where we're at. Now, in terms of other things, because we didn't really get a chance to do our coffee talk this morning, as I mentioned, I had an event that I was doing this morning. Still want to make sure to get you caught up to date on that. So let's talk about our local forecast. Of course, it's a little bit later than normal, but it is beautiful outside. Take a look. Tourist District, current temperature 79 degrees. We're in the lower 80s at Daytona Beach, over at the Kennedy Space Center, and in downtown Orlando. Mix of clouds and sunshine. Yesterday, we hit 90 degrees. Could we do the same today? I think so. Yesterday, by the way, was the second day in a row and the second day of the year that we hit 90 degrees. We're a little early. Okay, usually it's about April 8th for that first 90-degree day. Today, we're going to be in the ballpark. Okay, and all the way into the weekend as well. So let's take a look. Central Florida's certified most accurate 7-day forecast, chatting about those warming temperatures, right? Today we're getting up to about 90. Tomorrow, 90. Saturday, Sunday, 90. Now, Tuesday's going to be the next interesting day. That's when our next cold front arrives. And with that cold front, of course, we're going to be dealing with a bit of a thunderstorm complex. Okay. There's going to be the there's going to be the opportunity there to not only see some storms, but to see some nastier storms. Okay, so may have to deal with some rougher stuff. Models are going to have to really dial into that. Okay, so that's kind of the idea. We don't 100% know how that's going to end up. Still a little early, but we'll watch that. All right. So let's do this. Let's kind of take a look at the longer range setup here. All right. Does that sound good? This is using the European modeling. But essentially, we've got our next cold front coming through. That next cold front will bring in showers, storms during the day Tuesday. The question is, of course, timing and severity. If it hits during the afternoon when temperatures are around 90 degrees, we could be talking about some nastier stuff. So it's a little early to tell. But at this point, I'm going to give you the first warning that Tuesday may get a little feisty. All right. So we've got a 60% coverage of storms in there. We'll see how that plays out. Certainly will drop the temperatures, upper 70s. Wednesday looking pretty good. If we go even further down the pike, just looking at temperatures, you kind of see it brings temps down. Okay, this is the raw GFS numbers, right? So hot, 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 hot through Monday. Tuesday, temps drop back into the 80s Wednesday, Thursday, maybe a little bit of a drop into Friday, April 11th, and then it kind of starts to gradually go back up. So there's no significant chill. Temperatures little by little are going to continue to warm. We've entered into that spring pattern where Central Florida absolutely likes warmer temperatures. So don't hope for jacket weather because we may have one more like real cold front, but yeah, as Katie says, we'll need the pool soon. Yes, that's kind of where we're at here. All right. Requesting lanai weather for the 12th, so 60 people aren't crammed into my house. We'll see what we can do. All right. So that's kind of where we're at. Of course, we'll have updates on the forecast throughout the day. But for now, that's it. A bit of a shorter coffee talk. Delayed, shorter, you get the deal. All right. Be the sunshine in someone else's day.